is John Nelson, and you're listening to the Starting Block Podcast. Guys, this is the show for complete athletic development. The objective here is to give you the tools to win, whether you're the athlete, the parent, or the coach. As always, I'm here with my co-host, Chris Scarborough. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon. How are you guys?
Good. Guys, if you are new to the show, welcome. I appreciate you joining us. We operate quite a bit different than your standard podcast, okay? You're actually going to find multiple shows within the show. So the first episode you'll get from us is going to be a Q&A. We're trying to keep that bi-weekly. As you know, in 2025, we struggled with that a little bit, but we're trying to get our act together. So bi-weekly Q&A, that's where you can, we'll tackle the questions you guys submit to us. That can be anything related to the training, performance, rehab, the neuro voodoo stuff that we do, anything our guests have talked about. Fire at us, and we'll be happy to tackle it there. You can reach me on Instagram at Coach John ELP. Chris, where can they get you?
Instagram, Fast and Agile 49.
Episode number 2 is a guest interview. That's just like every other podcast on the planet. That's where we're going to bring in our friends, colleagues from across the globe. At this point, they're going to share their stories of success, what they do with their clients, their patients, at their practices, in their gyms, in their schools, and ultimately become somebody you guys can network. That's what we got today, and I'll bring our guest on here in just a second. And then that 3A and 3B episode that you might or might not get from us, right? That's going to be the athlete spotlight. If we can ever get those scheduled, we will do those. And then you might get that solo episode from me where I just kind of go on my rant. I like to call it guided wisdom. I think that was Dr. McMakin that coined that term from us. Some people just call it me just being angry. So take it for what it is, but we'll probably throw some of those back out there. We haven't done one of those in a while, Chris.
Well, nobody's really pissed you off, John. I mean,
we've had some good conversations. Some things off air. I think there's we might be spewing some fire here soon. But guys, that's the show breakdown. We don't run ads on the show, so all we do is ask that if you get value out of this, please just share the show. Bring us a friend, help us grow this. That's really all we ask for. It does take some time out of our schedule, some money out of our schedule, so if you get value of it, please just bring us a friend, help us spread the message. I think that's pretty much it. Always got to double check with you. That's pretty much it, right, Chris?
2.5 minutes. 2.5 minutes, John. You're back to your old self, man.
I'm back to my old self. Yeah, we struggled there a little bit. So, guys, without further ado, we are pleased to have a guest on today. Her name is Kayla Girgen, and she is the author of the book Ruck Fit. So, Kayla, what's up? Welcome.
Hi. Thanks for having me. I love this. Like, I want to get on this guided wisdom, right? Is that what you said? Like
guided wisdom, yes, is what.
Can we do one today? Like, what can we?
We kind of did before the show started, but maybe if you get me going, I'm known to kind of get hot and kind of start rolling with some things.
That's what trends, right? Like maybe we can go viral or something.
Yeah, it's literally like a hot take. You know, it's like a Stephen A. Smith hot take or something. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So, we've kind of talked a little bit off air, so let's just kind of start back from the beginning. Heard about your book. We're definitely going to get to it, but I kind of want to know a little bit about you and learn your story and introduce yourself to the audience. So you've got the floor. Go.
Yeah. I never know where to start with this question. And I think like today, for example, I was thinking like, how do I want to start it today? I don't have like my usual spiel, but I will say I was working in a corporate job. I had like many people going to college, I changed my major a million times. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So I ended up leaving and eventually was trying to find my way out of the corporate world. And one thing that I really was doing on the side was like looking at fitness, nutrition magazines. Like this was before we got all of our information from our research. I'm like doing my air quotes. This is before we did research on social media. But I was looking at like a lot of fitness magazines. Bodybuilding.com was like one of my favorite resources. And
it really was good back in the day.
Yeah, and now like everything's paywalled. I'm like, can you just bring that back?
Chris, didn't you write for bodybuilding.com at some point?
I did. I wrote probably half a dozen articles, all of which I'm very much ashamed of. So,
are they paying you now?
Yeah.
You should be getting residuals.
I have no earthly idea. I have never seen any money, but if they're paying me, it's going to somebody else, I suppose.
You got to look at the stone tablet section of bodybuilding.com.
Yeah, they were the GOAT. Like, they just had so many good, like, I think they were ahead of their time in that piece. But
well, I know the CEO has moved over to another company. I don't want to say that on air because I don't really know how public that is, but I know the other company's starting to grow big time, or somebody high in that rank did. And I feel like when he left, I think that's kind of when they started to go downhill a little bit. Chris, it's a company you and I have talked about a couple times, but you know,
Right.
But anyway, they're doing good things. But yeah, like them and like T Nation. T Nation used to be really good too. Like, I don't know if
Yes.
you ever followed them, but I liked them as well.
Yeah, and I love like even all of the people that were writing for like bodybuilding.com. Like I think of like Jim Stepani and the Lane Nortons, and it's like
Yeah.
you know, all of those people. Like it's really been fun just to see, I think, their platforms grow, and like, you know, if people like Lane Norton know about things like ranting. So
Yeah, oh yeah.
But anyway, I was like looking at how can I pivot essentially out of my corporate job. So my goal was to get my personal training certification and just kind of start to build my business on the side. And I think what I realized this morning in like doing mental prep for this episode, I'm like, I think what I really wanted out of my personal training certification was, I think nutrition was really what I wanted to what I gravitated towards. And I had no idea what a registered dietitian was, and figured that out kind of going through all the different scopes of practice, like what I could, what I couldn't do as a trainer, and then eventually got my personal training certification and then went back to school to be a registered dietitian. So I love that you love to rant, because I think there's so much nutrition noise out there, especially, and we just really overcomplicate a lot of things. So yes,
That's a fact.
I'm always up for like a good rant. And I think I'm like maybe not a dietitian that a lot of people expect. Like people think like they're going to give me macros and a meal plan. And a lot of times like I try to get to know my clients, like what, you know, where are they starting? And then we can kind of chip away at change versus trying to do some sort of like drastic overhaul overnight, because that's just not going to be sustainable. And then like, how does Rucking fit into the picture, I guess?
Yeah.
Like years later, like working in a clinical job, this was like mid-pandemic. You know, all the gyms were locked down, and I felt like working in healthcare was just awful, for lack of a better term. I feel like it just really kind of impacted my mental health. And then I discovered what Rucking was on a podcast and started Rucking. And I feel like it was just as transformative mentally as I think it was physically for me too. And then I just started sharing about it. And then I had like my agent reached out and he's like, hey, like you're sharing about this, like you kind of have a little bit of an audience around it. Like, do you want to write a book? And I was like, why not? And that's what brought me here.
Very cool.
Nice.
I want to. We're going to spend time getting into the book, absolutely. But I'm kind of curious as to your side of it from the training and nutrition side of it as well. Like, I agree with you on the nutrition side of it. People overcomplicate it massively. You know, what are some of the? I mean, are you still involved with that side of it, or are you just kind of strictly now the ruck person?
I would say I'm actually primarily nutrition. And
Okay.
like Rucking on the side, maybe.
Yeah.
But now it's become, I don't know, I have a lot of irons in the fire right now. So it's like,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
know the
now
feeling.
my goal is really to kind of start to peel some of that back. But I love like my nutrition coaching. So I have like primarily work with like weight management, but then I also love using things like continuous glucose monitoring to really get that like individualized feedback from people. So it's not just about like counting calories. It's like, how are those calories like impacting your biology? Like, let's pop the hood. And with things like that, when we're looking at things like blood sugar, it's like we can see how exercise plays into it. We can see how stress or lack of sleep. And I feel like a lot of those lifestyle factors, it's hard to intervene on when you can't like, I don't know, you can count grams of protein and you can count calories, but you can't really like count your stress. But when you see it on something like a CGM, it's really interesting to have that data to be able to get people motivated to change on some of those other things outside of food too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I know this is a pretty elementary question along that same route, but I mean, explain to our audience. I mean, because this might be something, you know, especially if we're dealing with athletes, for example. Yeah, they're told oftentimes, hey, go eat everything, you know, go eat. And a lot of times that ends up being a lot of junk food, including some of the protein supplements that you see out there are probably loaded with, it's not even that much protein. It's a lot more sugar, blah, 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 whatever. I mean, what is the impact then of that glucose? I mean, whether it be high, whether it be low, I mean, what is the impact for the typical individual of those types of things?
Yeah, I will say maybe just to back up, like a continuous glucose monitor, essentially if you see people like wearing the sensor on your arm and then that translates to an app on your phone. So essentially you can see your blood sugar in real time. And what I see is like when you see a lot of like high highs and a lot of low lows, like you feel like crap. Like you maybe feel like that jittery on the backside of it. You might feel really tired, or like thinking about like exercise in particular, like that can really like pull your blood sugar down quickly. So you have to kind of taper it a little bit. Like, should we, incorporate something before post workout? But I would say thinking about like your audience or athletes in particular, they're going to find like when that blood sugar is steady, or like specifically like managing some of those spikes. Like a blood sugar spike isn't a bad thing. Like the goal isn't to just have a flatline glucose, but we want to be thoughtful about like when some of those spikes, for example, are happening. And like, just to give you maybe one example, like I see a lot of people fearful, like wearing a continuous glucose monitor. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm spiking at this time, or my workout really spiked me. I'm like, that's not a bad thing. Like if that spike is coming from exercise, it's like, that's your liver doing its job, like kicking some sugar out into your system. Like that's a good thing. But when we look on the back end, say of a workout, and, plan a meal that's maybe got protein and carbs in it, and purposely like getting some sort of like good post-workout meal where we get maybe a purposeful spike, I'll say, we can really kind of leverage things like insulin to really shuttle nutrients into the muscle post-workout and really help with, what we'd call gains or some of that recovery too. So I don't know if I answered your question. Maybe I like went off a little bit on that, but I would say like that's kind of like more narrow to like just the workout, but looking at like a wider scope and maybe stepping back, like looking at things like sleep, we can really see if that blood sugar is fluctuating a lot overnight. So if I have somebody who's maybe like overtraining, burning the candle at both ends, and we see like continuously high average glucose, like it just really helps give another metric where we're able to use some of that data again to see like finding the right level of stress and physical activity, balancing that with nutrition, and then the lifestyle like stress and sleep too.
So this might be an elementary question as well, but that's kind of how our show operates, and our regular listeners know that. So yeah, when you said you had to prep for our show, like, come on, like, no, you didn't have to prep, but I appreciate it.
No, well, you only spent 20 years prepping. Come on, we
Yeah. All right. So I do think this is important, though, and I'd like for you to talk on this. So I do know we have a lot of new coaches that find us. Coaches that are just getting into the industry, whether it is strength conditioning, whether it is personal training, and obviously, naturally, in these roles, nutrition does come along for the ride a little bit, right? But as with anything, there is a line, right? Like in professionals, young coaches listening to this, you guys need to know when you need to recommend somebody to a qualified person like a registered dietitian or a PT or whatever the case may be. So like, can you walk some of these new coaches through that? Because honestly, there's probably some new coaches that don't even really know why I would need a registered dietitian. Because if I know how to give my client macros and kind of generally guide them on food, why do I need you? You know what I mean? Like, maybe walk some of the coaches through that. Like, where does that line change for them so they can take that and apply it with their career?
Yeah, I would say if you were to draw like a line down the middle, you have like dietitian on one side, you've got trainer on the other. I would say on that trainer side, it's going to be maybe more like general recommendations, like eat more vegetables, or, some of that more, I guess, general insight, eat more of this versus when I think on the dietitian side, it's more prescriptive. Like maybe that's where we see like specific macronutrient targets, for example, or trying to give more like pointed guidance. So I would say like those specifics. One thing that dietitians are trained in that really is unique to us is medical nutrition therapy, so MNT. And that's really where we're using nutrition and leveraging that to like maybe minimize symptoms or treat specific disease states. So if I think of like high blood pressure or like nutrition around high cholesterol, like we're really able to give maybe more pointed guidance and targeting things like that, where I see a lot of trainers are probably working with somebody who wants to maybe put muscle on or lose weight. I do see how you had mentioned, like they might be going out of scope without even realizing it. Like, here's a specific meal plan. That's probably, if it is very prescriptive, it could be a little bit out of scope versus, again, giving more of that general kind of guidance.
Yeah, yeah, and I think most people do with good intentions, obviously, but
Yes.
I think like you said, especially with the the special population side, and I mean blood pressure. I don't know, special population. You know what I mean, though. People that have specific types of dietary needs, like that's not for a coach to try to figure out. That's what a licensed professional like yourself is. And so for your young coaches out there, guys, there's no shame in not knowing that. You're not supposed to. That's not your scope. So find somebody like that in your community, and that can actually help you. It can help your community grow. But I just thought that was a good point to bring up, and so I think a lot of coaches probably struggle with that.
Can I add, like, just to piggyback off of that too?
Fire away.
Think like sometimes you want to be the person that does it all, but I think a
Absolutely.
lot of times like your clients like look up to you, or I think respect the fact that where you draw that line. Oftentimes where it's like, okay, I'm not comfortable doing that, but I'll refer you somewhere, to somebody else, and I think you get that business back to you.
Absolutely.
So it's nice to be able to build that referral network.
Tenfold. Yeah. So your coach, and so coaches out there that are afraid that you may look stupid not knowing everything, like it will actually turn around and help you in the long run, for sure.
And it makes your job easier, because then you can just like focus on training and let somebody else do the rest. Like, especially in this world, we were kind of talking before you click record today, how everything is hyper specialized. It's like it really lets you kind of niche down, I think, a little bit more and exercise that expertise.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
But by the way, I want to kind of, speaking of piggybacking, I want to kind of go back to, we were talking about a minute ago on, athletic and blood sugar monitoring, and spikes weren't necessarily a problem. Are there certain levels of spiking, different levels of spiking that is a problem? So in other words, like we have somebody, who's, because John and I have adult clients too. At what level of this spiking, okay, wait a minute, this is not normal, and this is probably something that might require some professional intervention.
Yeah.
Does that question make sense?
Yes. Yep, I agree. I love this question because I think it kind of wraps up what we were talking about, and I don't want that to go out of context. Like, oh, spikes aren't a problem, because, like you said, if it's happening, every couple hours, and thinking to a lot of nutrition advice that we hear, like I'm thinking about one thing that really irks me, and it is like eat every 2 hours to keep your metabolism going. And that, for example, is something where I see your blood sugar spiking up and it's dropping, and you kind of get on this roller coaster all day, so you feel like crap when your blood sugar is constantly going up and down and up and down. And like you said, for somebody when they're just given that advice to eat every couple of hours to keep your metabolism going, like you said, we're not talking about like nutrition quality there, so it tends to be maybe something that's really highly processed, or something that really spikes you up, and you get into this like cycle where you're spiking, you're crashing, then you're craving something, and it's just kind of a vicious cycle all day. And usually it starts with breakfast, just because like carbs are those things that tend to spike us the most. And you think of what our breakfast looks like, it's like toast and oatmeal and like the standard American diet, pancakes, muffins. It's a lot of like highly processed things. So it's, first thing in the morning, you're jumping that blood sugar up, and oftentimes it's maybe 90 minutes to 2 hours later, you're just feeling awful and reaching for whatever is close by. So I don't know that I would have like a specific number to say like X amount of spikes per day is bad. It really depends on the person. And I would say like looking at the, like what people would call the time under the curve. So when that spikes up and it comes back down, like, are they staying high for a really long time? Because some of those trends are what I look for too. So for example, when somebody's blood sugar jumps up and it stays high, like that's a pretty late sign of insulin resistance. And then I know like, okay, we've got some work to do. Another red flag that I look for too is if somebody's blood sugar jumps up and then they rebound. So they really crash really fast. And a lot of people might feel like shaky or extreme hunger or really tired, maybe like they're going to pass out, like anywhere from like 2 to 3 hours after eating. So it can be hard to pinpoint if you're eating every few hours, but that tends to compound. And we know that when somebody's blood sugar jumps up and it crashes really hard, like that's going to dictate how many calories you eat within the next 90 minutes and within the scope of the day, more so than any other factors like self-reported hunger and other things. So when I think about like specific numbers, I don't know that I have that, because it does look very individual. What I will say is that usually like the first week I have somebody on a monitor, I tell them change nothing. Like, let's get a baseline. Let's see where you're at. And say if you're like spiking above range 4 times a day, let's like maybe try to bring that down to 3 and then 2 and kind of see what we can do to maybe add protein or more fiber, like change some of that macronutrient makeup to make those spikes less frequent and less drastic. But then circling back to what I had said earlier, maybe we can use some of that those strategic spikes, what I like to call them, around exercise to either help fuel your workout or on the back end, maybe replenish glycogen and get some of that recovery or really kind of set your body up for the muscle protein synthesis. So again, I don't know, maybe I rambled too long.
No, that's awesome information.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yes.
That is
Yes.
fantastic information right there.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to change direction a little bit, and let's get into the whole rucking side of stuff, right? So most
Better
of the
say that
listeners,
carefully. First of all, say that word carefully for everyone.
rucking with an R.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the fun part about it. You can, like, wherever the F word goes, you can just insert rock.
I do have a
Yes.
southern accent, so I understand that things might get
Yes.
confusing. I don't talk very fast, I know. Most of our listeners know that I'm a big rucker. So I can keep a straight face now. I'm a big rucker. Have enjoyed it for a number of years. So when y'all reached out, I was like, oh, this is going to be cool. Like, I'm looking forward to talking to somebody who's dug into the science of rucking a little bit. So, yeah, how did you get started on that path? I know you said it a little bit in the beginning, I think, when you guys up north got shut down with all that COVID stuff. We'll save that for another
Right.
conversation. But, yeah, let's dig down that rabbit hole.
Yeah,
The
so
rucking, not the COVID.
I learned about rucking I was listening to Peter Attia's podcast, and he had Michael Easter on, and they were talking about like doing hard things. And I think at that time, Michael Easter was promoting Comfort Crisis. If you read that book, it's excellent. It's a really good book, but it just talks about how we have these like comfort climates, essentially. Like, we just do everything in our power to stay comfortable, whether it's like temperature or not doing hard things. But anyway, the conversation meandered to rucking, and essentially rucking is just finding a backpack, throwing some weight in or something heavy, and going for a walk. So you're essentially going for a weighted walk, and a ton of different benefits. I think what really stood out to me at that time was, again, like you had mentioned, like gyms were kind of locked down. It was a way to get outside. I found that just like not moving, like not being able to maybe go to the gym, again, working in healthcare, like I just needed some sort of like mental outlet. So rucking really got me outside and out of my head. But then with that weight bearing exercise, so being that you have weight on your torso, like it counts as weight bearing exercise. So compared to walking, you can burn 2 to 3 times more calories just because you're moving under load. And it can help with things like muscle as well, cardiovascular health. So I like to say like rucking is basically cardio for the person who loves strength training, and it's strength training for the person who loves cardio. So you really get the best of both worlds with it. And then when I think about like muscle and cardiovascular endurance, it also helps with bone density. So it provides that stimulus to your skeleton to really help preserve that bone density too. And then on the mental health benefits, I would say, again, it gets you outside. A lot of people are like, can I ruck on a treadmill? And I'm like, yes, but like the point is to get outside, like dress for the weather, like get yourself outside, because we just spend so much time indoors. And I think that is just, detrimental to our mental and physical health in a lot of ways too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really taken off the last, 4 or 5 years-ish, and like what led to that? Like what led to this just explosion? Because like even I started getting into it, like what led to that explosion? Do you know?
I think there was a couple of people that were really pivotal. I would say like, I think Michael Easter was a big one. Like I think there was a few key like influencers. And then I see like, I think because of the pandemic and just a lot of things being closed down, I think people were like, they built their home gyms, for example. And, I feel like I'd be curious to know the stats. Maybe you guys know of just like how many people have actually returned to gyms versus like keeping their home gyms. And I feel like rucking is one way, again, to like get outside and get that cardiovascular burn without needing something like a gym membership. So it's free. Like, I think that's one thing too, like thinking about like just the state of, how inflation and how things are increasing. It's like a lot of times people's gym memberships are maybe one of the first things to go, but rucking isn't something where you need like any crazy equipment or any sort of, again, gym membership. You can just grab your ruck and essentially go. So I think the accessibility and how really anybody can do it at any fitness level. My husband and I started a ruck club, so it's like we get together at least once a week with, other local people, and it's like if you feel like the group slows you down, then put more weight on. If you feel like you have a hard time keeping up, then go lighter. So I think that the weight is a really great equalizer where everybody gets a good workout and you still get that like social component too, because I feel like people are wanting that in-person connection again too, versus just like everything being online.
Well, and Jack Cruz would totally be, one of the guests we had on a couple of times, Jack Cruz, he would definitely be on board with, doing pretty much anything outside. I mean, that was his thing, was, just the fact that we're, our circadian rhythms are so off, as a result of us being indoors so much and artificial lighting and so on. So
vitamin D deficiency, like that affects everything from immunity and, like you said, circadian rhythm. Like, yes, we are inside way too much.
So it's without question. I mean, it's just one way among, anything that you can do outside. I mean, that alone is amazing. And then on top of that, as you were talking about the benefits, but specifically, whether it be weight bearing, whether it be the cardiovascular or the repetitive nature of it, and the fact that you can change terrains on the, terrain, you could change, surfaces, whatever, all in the same session. It's pretty much, not to mention, social groups, you can certainly, make this very, very entertaining, or, if you want to be by yourself, you can do that too.
Exactly. It can really be like solitude, or like you said, it can be social. And I think that's what I love about it too. It was really like our Ruck Club is what kept me going, like writing the book, because it got me outside again, because yeah, you're just kind of like head down and focusing, and you're like, okay, like I'm putting everything on the back burner. I need to like get outside, get out of my head again. And I think that's my favorite thing about rucking. Like I always joke that I'm like, I got to get my emotional support steps in today. Like, are you getting those in? Because it just makes a tremendous difference. Like, again, whether it's the weight, like you said, or just getting outside and getting into nature.
Yeah. Another reason that I think this exploded too, I wanted to just circle back to that, was I want to give some credit where credit is due, I feel like, is the explosion of 75 hard. I mean, 75 hard is one of the biggest hashtags of all time. It's got over 1 billion freaking tags or whatever it is. And that's Andy Frisella, First Form Company, all that. And one of the objectives of 75 hard was the outdoor workout. And so I think that probably played a huge role, in Rucking's explosion as well, because 45-minute outdoor workout, and I think people were looking for ways to kind of challenge it. So I kind of noticed that those kind of coincided with each other as well. So just thought I'd add that in there, because I think that was probably a big driver in as well.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people like maybe enjoy walking, but they feel like it's not enough. Like I think it's like some people are like, oh, walking doesn't count as exercise, or what have you. That could be a rant for another day. But I think it just lets you.
So is walking exercise?
I would say.
So now I'm going to put you on the spot. So now you got to answer.
I would say 100% yes. Like if you're walking, you're like, what do they say? You're already farther than somebody sitting on the couch. And I think for some individuals, like maybe that's all they can do.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Good point. Yes.
Yes.
All right. Fair enough. Okay.
We can debate if you want to. Yeah.
No, I mean, I agree with you. I think I'm a little bit more of a hard ass when it comes to that, though. But I mean, I do agree. I mean, for some people, that's all they can do, and that's great. But I do think at a certain point, like walking is not exercise, just in the sense that we're doing what we're supposed to as humans. Like as human beings, we're supposed to be moving around. Now, granted, our society has declined so much that it does become exercise, and so that's not a knock on people who that's all they can do. That's great. I'm glad you're out there doing it, but I'm usually a little harder on people. It's like,
yeah.
But one thing I was going to say though about walking outside, and Kayla, you've already mentioned this, and that is just it's not even trying to get that heart rate up or whatever you want to, if you want to call it, cardiac exercise, cardiovascular, cardio, whatever phrase you want to put in there. I think a lot of it is exactly what you said, Kayla, and that's just the mental clarity of getting outside, putting in the steps. I mean, it's like I can't even talk on the phone, which I almost never do talk on the phone, but I can't talk on the phone without pacing. I have to pace. And so something like that, something that simple, it's like it just clears my head. And I've done that from the time I was little. So that's, I don't think of walking as exercise either. I think it as just, yeah, John, like you said, that's just what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, but like I said, that's not a knock on people that's all you can do. That's
correct.
You start where you start. That's great, and keep pushing. And keep building yourself up. So I do want to
and I
clarify
think
and say
definitely
that.
people definitely need a challenge too, because I even see that with rucking, for example. It's like, okay, you've been rucking with 10 pounds for what, 3 months now? Like, let's ramp things up a little bit. So I tend to see like females, you have to challenge them a little bit more. Like, okay, like let's add, versus males on the other end. It's like, okay, let's scale back. Like you can't, throw 50 pounds on and then just start going and not expect to see any injuries. So
funny story there. You asked about some of my rants. I think one day we did an episode and I was fired up about something. And that next day, like I went out and I think it was that night actually. I went out for a ruck. And I went for a long ruck, and man, I crushed it. Like I was probably gone for about 45 minutes, and I'd been using the same weight I'd been using for a couple weeks. I was like, man, this is light. And so I got up and talked to the people that follow me. I'm like, yeah, this is how you do it. This is how you be a badass. All that stuff, right? Well, I got back to the garage, and I unzipped the backpack, and my wife had taken 10 pounds out of the back, and I didn't know.
Oh, man.
Talk about being humbled so quickly.
Yes, I was humbled very quickly. Yeah, very quickly. But it makes a big difference. Yeah, just the 10 pounds. But let's talk about that. Actually, where to start with it. I don't recommend you go just put a 45-pound bag on. You got to start somewhere. So where do you like to start people with it?
Yeah, I would say usually for women, they're like pretty comfortable with 10 to 15 pounds. I would say males, depending on fitness level, I would say maybe that's like 15 to 20. But I think too, it's not necessarily like how much weight you're carrying initial. It's like some of those mechanics too. Because what I find is like just the change in posture. So when you're wearing something like a ruck, like that's going to straighten you out. It's going to help improve your posture. So a lot of times I see where people, like myself included, I had kind of like a little crick in my shoulder, or like you might notice your hips tighten up. Like you tend to change your gait a little bit. So I think just recognizing that could be one, after effect of rucking. So it's something you certainly want to ramp up. I think like one indication is if you put your pack on, you've got weight in it, and you're leaning forward, that's usually a good indication that you've got too much weight on. And when you're wearing that weight, you want it like high and tight. So you want it kind of like mid-back. You don't want it moving around. So depending on your pack or your setup, you might need something where you're cushioning it, or if you have something like a specific rucksack, that can be really helpful, especially when you're getting into heavier weights. I just got a new ruck. It's so fun because it's like you buy it and you're like, I'm gonna have this for life. And it has the hip belt, the chest strap, and I feel like it's so much more comfortable. And
that hip strap makes a big difference.
It's huge. And like I've done like backpacking before, but this is like, it has the hip belt, but this is a lot more, compact and condensed, and you've got padded, shoulder straps, so it's not pulling down on your traps. And it is huge. Like that hip belt, I was like, oh my gosh, like I added 10 pounds, maybe I'll add another 5 to 10. So you can really, I feel like, scale up a lot quicker when you have, other tools, or if you're carrying things like, we all know, like when you have good form, like that's really when you can start to compound and like add the weight on.
Mm-hmm. How do you like to progress your clients or folks with that? So do you take a traditional linear approach to this, or do you throw in different variables in trying to progress your weights, or do you just let people kind of go when they feel like they're ready to up it? How do you go about upping people's weight?
Yeah, I would say this is where I do the really annoying thing, like listen to your own body, But I would say, like, again, like sometimes for males, it's like holding them back at first, like, but once you establish like that, maybe your usual distance, a lot of people maybe have a walking routine or something. And if you're able to do that comfortably, or say you come back and you're like, wow, like you had said, when you took some weight, or your wife unknowingly took weight out of your ruck, it's like, when you come back and you're like, okay, I could have done more.
Ego shot right there.
Yeah. Like that's a good sign. You don't want to always come back. Like and just feel absolutely taxed. Like my husband and I call it, like, you've got like the post-workout DERS, you know, like you have that workout and you're just like, you can't like get your energy back up the rest of the day. Like maybe once a week, like I like to do what I call like a sucky ruck. Like maybe that's extra weight or extra distance, but certainly try not to do like too many variables at once. Or I see where somebody wants to turn like every single walk into a ruck, you know, especially at first. So maybe starting out, it's like 2-3 days a week, giving yourself at least a day in between. And then once you build up again some of those maybe change in gait or mechanics, then you're able to scale up. Maybe it's 5 pounds at a time. I would say that's usually what like most weight plates are. You know, maybe it's throwing in an extra 10 if you're going for a shorter distance. So I think all factors like weight, distance, incline is another big one. Like that's something that will really ramp up the intensity. So I would say like if you can hold back from changing too many factors at once, try to experiment with maybe one of the three before you start to kind of gamble, especially if you're new to it.
Mm-hmm. For athletes, I tell our athletes that ask about this that this is a great just GPP exercise. And you know, for, you know, the athletes or coaches that have listened to this, you know, I always use the pyramid reference that your GPP is the base of your pyramid. And I found that to be very, very beneficial into helping our athletes gain that just base of fitness. Do you incorporate ruck with athletes, or is that your market at all? And if it is, if not, fine. But if it is, how do you like to incorporate it with them?
Yeah, I have a couple athletes I work with. Like, I think now, like, it's not in their season. I have one gal in particular. She's actually running like a 100-mile race today.
Oh, nice.
Yes,
wow.
but
That
like,
sounds absolutely miserable.
yeah,
Yes, it does.
she is like the most. I told her last week, I'm like, if I could just take 1/10 of your discipline and split it between all of my clients, like I'd be one happy gal. But she is just like, tell me what to do and I'll do it.
She's like one of those David Goggins people.
Oh my gosh,
like-
yeah. And I think that's what she listens to on a lot of her races.
Anybody that does that
Yeah.
type of stuff has a mentality of David Goggins. Like, that's just not, it's not normal. I'm sorry to your friend. You're not normal.
Yeah, and I think like even before her race, she's already like, okay, I'm signed up for a bodybuilding competition next. Like, can we just like finish? She's always
Jeez.
got something. She has to have the carrot dangling. Like,
Yeah.
Holy cow. Yeah.
But I would say that aside, like you said, this is something that I usually use just to build up that cardiovascular endurance. And like me personally, I hate running. I'll probably never run again if I don't have to.
Welcome to
And
the
I think,
club.
like-
We are anti-running.
Yeah, the anti-running club. Like, I love it. That would be a great like ruck club name, I feel like.
Actually,
So,
would be.
Yeah, somebody will have
Trademark.
to Yeah, I was just gonna say.
That's ours.
Anti-running.
Yeah.
Yes, but I feel like it's a way to exercise a lot of those same muscles, like you said, maybe get some of that cardiovascular benefit without running. You can add more or less weight, again, to, you know, play with what you want to achieve as your goal. So I would say typically I'm using it in a way for building that cardiovascular, because rucking certainly isn't going to be like a replacement for strength training, but I think it's a good entry point for, like, I think a lot of the people I work with who are maybe intimidated a little bit to start strength training. This is a good way for them to do some sort of weight bearing exercise and then kind of progress into, you know, formal strength training after that, or in addition to.
Well,
I
I've got
agree
a
with
question
that.
along. Sorry,
Go.
John.
I want to say this real quick,
Yep.
and then go for your question. I want to agree with what you said. I think it's a very good entry point for a lot of people that are wanting to get into strength training, but it's also a very good indicator for where you're weak as well. And I know with me, that was very evident. You know, for most of our listeners, you guys know about my back history, but for those that don't, the quick story is I had a tumor that broke off my spine when I was 18, and so I'm missing part of my L2 vertebrae. I'm missing the transfer process, and I'm part of it. So my back has always been a weakness. I bring that up because I'm very limited in what I can do from a squat standpoint. I'm not like one of those 40-year-old men that's like, oh, I can't squat because of my knees. No, I legitimately can't go heavy loads on squats. My back can't handle it. But when I started to get into rucking, it really showed where the weak points were. Like, my back lit up, especially my upper back. My lower back did. But my hamstrings exploded on me, and I can deadlift. And my deadlift shot up as well because
Nice.
the rucking showed me a weak point that I have never I didn't know I had it in the gym, you know. And so I thought that was just a very unique benefit of rucking, is it can definitely be a great entry point, but I feel like it also was a great indicator of, hey, where I am weak in general.
Yeah, it evens you out. So if you feel like you have like maybe more fluff and you want to lean out, like rucking will do that. But if you feel like maybe frail or like you want to put some mass on, I feel like rucking can help. Again, it's not going to replace like picking up formal weights, but like you said, it really can help point out some of those imbalances and like helps tremendously.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Chris?
Well, along the lines of strength training exercise, do you ever add in things in a ruck that are like lunges, like like intentionally going up a steeper side of a hill, for example, something that you would consider a strength training exercise, even though you're actually in a walk or actually in a ruck? So, do you ever do that on purpose? Squats,
sure.
anything?
Yeah. Yep. And that's what I love too is like, again, you can use your ruck like as your strength training buddy. Like you had said, you can do lunges, you can do, you can do squats. I feel like that actually feels really good after a ruck. Like if you kind of hold your ruck on the front and then knock out like just a few squats, you're like, holy cow, that lights up my hips, or what have you. You can do presses, like you can do push-ups and pull-ups. You can actually like use your ruck as that extra resistance if you want to, again, take it to the next level, or for someone who doesn't want to, again, like get a gym membership or is maybe a little bit intimidated. It can be another great like progression. Like if you're starting out rucking, maybe the next step is to throw in like sandwich your ruck with some strength, or like you said, do some lunges. There's really like there's no wrong way to ruck.
Yeah. So let's the tools for rucking. I learned the hard way that there's a difference between the backpack and the weighted vest. So what do you feel is the difference there, and what should people start with?
Tell me more. Like, I want to hear the story.
Well, I went with the backpack forever, and I just threw weight plates in there, and then eventually just got to the point where my backpack broke, and I got a weighted vest, and that was just a whole different ball game for me. I still use the weighted vest, but I will admit I like the backpack a lot better. Mm-hmm. I don't really know why. I just do. I like the backpack a lot better, and I don't have an answer for it. So I just know I went out for my normal like 45-minute walk, and I'm like, holy crap, everything hurts on this weighted vest. Like, I want my backpack back.
Yeah. And I think I might be able to break some of that down, because I will say the way that you carry weight on something like a weighted vest. So does yours have like the weight plates where they slide into the vest?
Yeah, I got front and back. Yeah. Yep. Slide into them.
Because I will say with that configuration, so you've got like for maybe listeners, like, when you go to the dentist and they throw that thing on you, like you basically have that on the front, but then you also have like one of those on the back. Like that's
a good analogy.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a little bit, not quite as bulky, but when you have that weight on the front and the back, it's nice because it's better for your balance. So if you feel like anybody who's a little bit wobbly on your feet, it is maybe a little bit more comfortable. But the ruck, like it has 100% of the weight on your back. So you tend to like lean, kind of counterweight a little bit. So that's great for like core strength. But I would say with a weighted vest, you maybe don't get some of the posture benefits, being that you don't have all the weight in the back. So being where your ruck or the weighted backpack is going to pull your shoulders back, you don't always get that with the weighted vest. So just the way they carry can be a little bit different. And I think for a lot of people, it's like finding what's comfortable, I think, for you too. And it's nice to have both. Like if you do a vest for maybe like workouts, or quick walks around the neighborhood, and then maybe a ruck for like longer ones. But yeah. What was the question?
Just the difference between the weighted vest and the backpack. And like I said, I like the backpack better as well. I felt my glutes and hamstrings a whole heck of a lot more. And I got shifted into the weighted vest. It was a lot more shoulders. It's like, my scalenes and stuff started getting tight, So I liked the backpack much better.
I do too. And I would say, like, we had talked about the hip belt earlier.
Yes.
I feel like that makes it a lot more comfortable, where you don't usually have that with the weighted vest. I will say for like folks that are in like hot or humid climates, the pack is nice because, yes, like a lot of times, like you might not dissipate heat as well if you do have a weighted vest like over your front. So I will say, I think more of the weighted vests that are maybe geared towards women, they almost look like backpack straps, like with sand. Those are a little bit more open, but like what you're talking about, where your whole kind of chest is covered, if you really kind of struggle in hot temperatures, then I would definitely say a ruck or a backpack's probably gonna benefit you more, so that way you're not just holding heat under your vest too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we live in the humidity center of the world right here, so
Yes, it's miserable down here.
I feel you. Like I'm in Minnesota, and we have like in the summer it's unbearable, but I know you guys get a lot. You're on the worst receiving end of that.
But y'all got it up north with the snow, so you got us beat there, because we get a little dusting of snow and we're shut down for a week. So it is kind of a good thing. I think in our county there's like one snowplow here, like one. That's it.
Oh, wait, you have one? Okay, we don't have any. So you guys beat.
Yeah, I mean it's all out panic. So like if you ever hear Southerners, and snow issues, like it's real. If you've never been down here, it 100% is. We do not know how to handle it. It's not.
See, and we're waiting. We're on like a nice little lake, and we're just like, pretty soon cars are going to be out there, like ice fishing, and it's like a whole different type of lifestyle in the winter.
The concept of ice fishing is so interesting to me.
Yeah.
Like, is that a hobby of yours? Do you go ruck and then go ice fish?
My husband likes ice fishing, so I'll go along. But yeah, it's just weird when you're like seeing people driving in your backyard on the lake. So when it's
so just curious, how thick is that ice? Just in the middle of winter, how thick is the ice?
I mean, sometimes it's like if you're hitting like, I don't know, January, February, maybe like a foot, like or like give or take a little bit. But I know like one of my husband's friends, he's always like, that's his thing is to be like one of the first people out. And I mean, we're talking like inches. I don't know, a few inches. That's not my thing. But
y'all Minnesota guys. Good
I
grief.
know. I always see it. Maybe it's just in my feed because of my location, but like where they have the little thing that sits on your dashboard to like crack your windows open in case your car sinks into the lake. Yeah, so you guys probably don't have to worry about that.
No, not really.
No, you'd have to just drive straight into a lake. There would be no ice on it.
Yeah, not around here.
Yes.
Not around here. All right. So we're wrapping up here. We got just a couple minutes left. I want to circle back to one thing real quick, and then just let you give a shout out for your information so people know where to find you. I think we talked about it in the beginning, but we've kind of been all over the place, which if you listen to our show, that's normal. But like, where should people start? So say they hear you and they're like, look, I'm going to get a book. Like, where do I start with this?
Yeah, I would say you can oftentimes start with equipment you have at home. So if you have an old backpack lying around, I will say, I would imagine like your audience is probably, in relatively decent shape. Like it's not like walking is your entry point, but maybe if you, struggle to get 2,000 steps a day, maybe that's the first thing, is just like trying to get some steps under your feet. And then when you want to start rucking, grab a backpack, maybe throw in, if you don't have any formal weight plates, you can throw in a couple old textbooks or something that's going to add some weight. A lot of times like that interior pocket in a pack, for example, you can just throw it in. But again, like if you don't have a specific rucksack, like a lot of times that weight is going to hang. So it can be helpful, especially when you get to like 20 or more pounds. Like I love Go Ruck. They have, phenomenal equipment. They have a lifetime warranty. And oftentimes like you're going to buy that ruck and like they will actually challenge you to like try and break it to, try and go through their like lifetime warranty. So what's nice is like you might have that little bit of an investment up front, but you're going to have equipment that you have for life. So maybe it's starting with 10, 20 pounds. Give yourself just like a couple of weeks to get used to that. And then, maybe adding 5 to 10 pound increments after that. And you can always, like, if you're sticking at the same weight, you can always like play with distance. You can play with incline. And I would say maybe just, again, starting out like no more than 2 or 3 times a week, the first like few weeks, and then kind of ramping up from there.
Cool. That's perfect. I think that definitely gives people a good idea of where to start. All right. This has been fun. This has been good to connect with you. I'm really glad to hear somebody out there finally started to put some info together on rucking, and, because everybody seems to ask about it these days. So where can people find your book, and where can they find you?
Yes, you can find me, Kayla Girgen, RD, on all the things. Instagram is probably where I'm most active. The book Ruck Fit is available for pre-order on Amazon. You can find it on Barnes and Noble as well. And I would say like my goal really with the book was just to make it a good, digestible like resource for people kind of new to rucking, because what I do tend to see is like it's very intense. Like when you see a lot of people rucking, it's like they're doing crazy amounts of weight, like really tapping into some of that, like those military roots. So I think for a lot of people it can be intimidating, and my goal was to just help maybe increase that accessibility. So the book talks about all of the benefits, some that we talked about today. I really kind of do like your cheat sheet on gear if you're not sure where to start. And then Chris, you had asked about just like different like exercises. So I have like strength training. There's some pictures in there, like tutorials of like how you can use your ruck for actual strength training. There's training plans. Being a dietitian, I had to do my part and put some nutrition protocols in, and then kind of wrap everything up at the end with a bow, talking about like mindset and just keeping that motivation and that tracking going as well.
Awesome.
Perfect. Well, this has been fun. Thanks again for joining us. And yeah, guys, if you haven't done it, please go do it. It's a great experience. Go follow all Kayla's stuff out there. And y'all know the deal, guys, if you got value out of the show. So share the show. Guys, that's it. Kayla, thank you again.
Thank you, Kayla.
And you guys go share the show. Pay your dues.
Thank you.